This week on Clip Service, guys, Clippers have strung together a couple really good games. Obviously, it's not perfect, but we are recording this right after a very, very good, very good comeback by the Clippers against the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're recording this on Sunday, the 7th, and yeah, it was a great game. We'll obviously cover that on this episode, but some good signs coming out of the Clippers side of things. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to make sure to still be reasonable and realistic, and includes the stuff that we need to work on. But yeah, some good process from the Clippers. So all of that and more coming up. So without further ado, let's make it happen.
What's up, Clipper Nation, and welcome to the Clip Service Podcast. Please make sure to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon Music, YouTube, and you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Clip Service Pod. I'm Rolla, and this is my co-host Nick. Let's get right into it.
We got the squad back together. It's good to have you back, Rolla. Things were getting lonely over here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I don't know if Clipper Nation notices, but I'm in a new crib.
Yes.
I moved to Brooklyn. That's why I wasn't able to record last week. But, I'm back and I'm ready to get to it.
Rolla's going to be a Nets fan pretty soon.
So. Absolutely not, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah, so congrats to Rolla for the move. We're happy to have him back. We can finally kind of get some banter going, because it was hard talking to myself and trying to fabricate conversation by myself. But here we are. The squad's back together. We're still missing Connor, but we'll do what we can with the original squad. So the Clippers strung together three pretty good games, but all three were wins. All of those three coming after an unfortunate loss to the Kings without Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, which was very disappointing. But coming so close to the playoffs and having these games where, some of which didn't look great in the first half, certain bad habits were starting to show again in some of these. But, regardless of all that, this team has found a way to string things together in bunches down the stretch, and found a way to take really, really meaningful wins. Because, at the end of the day, with the playoffs coming so close, as I said before, the win, just getting the win speaks volumes, know. And, obviously you want to get back into good habits and try and do things the right way. But, the Mavs are only, I think, 2 games behind us. The Pelicans are right behind that, or the Suns, I think, are actually right behind them now. And we do have a back-to-back coming up against the Suns. So 2 games in a row against the Suns. So there's still, the seeding is kind of still in flux. I think that we'll probably end up finishing the season as a 4th seed, especially after this win against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But, it's always good to make sure that we can retain home court advantage. And so getting these wins definitely helps with that. Normally this isn't the part of the show that we would jump right into what's going on. I think we're going to do things a little bit differently this time around. And we're going to just talk about, given the fact that the playoffs are only about a week and a half away, we're going to talk a little bit about potential playoff matchups, the most likely of which would be a third matchup against Luka and the Mavericks. Obviously, it's going to be a different Mavericks team than we're used to seeing. But Rolla, what do you think right off the bat? What stands out to you about a potential matchup against Luka and the Mavs again?
So this matchup is one that I do not want, just because I think the Mavs are going to be significantly more motivated than they have ever been in a matchup with us. This would be their third matchup with us. in the last what, like 5-6 years.
Yeah. Well, the first one
And
was in 2020, so yeah.
yeah, 2020. So I think that Luca is going to be very. I mean, I think we can go into it with with a similar type of game plan that ended up working the first two times. But like I said, that we won two times. This is the third time. They're going to be very motivated. Luca's going to be very motivated. Like I said, he lost the first two times, so it's. I just would rather not play them
No, I
personally,
totally get it.
just based off that. I mean, Kawhi is a fantastic playoff performer. Um, but I think that our Clipper team as a whole has to be perfect to win that matchup. And I think that that could potentially be our hardest matchup in the playoffs this year.
That's a fair point. To that point, though, I'll give a little bit more of who I would prefer between the three potential teams that will end up playing or whatever in the first round. But more to that point, you said that this would be the hardest, probably the hardest matchup, or at least a very hard first round matchup
Yeah.
for the Clippers. But more to that point, I think if we end up pulling out a win against the Dallas Mavericks in the first round, um, given how hard it would be, and the amount of not just physical difficulty that it would take just based on having to guard Kyrie Irving and Luka
Hmm.
Doncic, two Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, but just the emotional side of things too. Like you said, Luka's really gonna be really motivated going into this one. We've already beat him twice.
Yeah.
He's only getting better year after year. And so there's there's the narrative side to it. I think pulling out a win against that version of a Mavs team in the first round would really go a long way for a Clippers team that really struggles finding motivation, in some games. You
Right.
see throughout the season, you see it against teams um, when the Clippers face teams that they really should be blowing out. Um, it's hard for them sometimes to find the motivation to just, you know, put the foot on the neck and try and end the game early, right?
Right.
Motivation is something that the Clippers kind of have lost, in spurts throughout the season, and so a really tough first round matchup. While it's a double edged sword, because obviously we don't want the Clippers to be eliminated in the first round, and we want to be able to choose the path of least resistance. But
Right.
if we can squeak out a win against this Mavs team, I think just the morale boost that would be for the
You
Clippers team would go a long way.
you said that there were three teams that we could potentially match up against. Who were the three teams?
So I mean, statistically, obviously the Mavs are the most probable,
Hmm.
but I think aside from that, I would have to take a look at the standings one more time. But I think it would be the Mavs, the Suns, who are right behind them,
Right.
and then the
Or is
the
it the Kings?
Pelicans. So the way that it's lined up right now is the Clippers are at four
Okay.
games back. Dallas is at 5, 6.5 games back. So it would be a game and a half, or no, excuse me, 2.5 games. Actually, I don't know if it's updated because they did just beat the Rockets. So 2.5 or 2 games back from the Clippers or the Dallas Mavericks in fifth.
Okay.
And then sixth is the Phoenix Suns, 7.5 games back. So a game behind, a game or a game and a half behind the Dallas Mavericks. And then you have New Orleans in seventh, who
Oh.
is a full game behind Phoenix as it
Oh,
stands
so
right now.
Phoenix could potentially be the next matchup.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is if
So
all,
if like I'm saying it's most probable Mavs, but we could also see the Phoenix Suns.
I think it's certainly possible, and it's interesting. The Phoenix Suns are interesting as a first round matchup potentially because, as I said before, we do have a back to back set of games against Phoenix. I
Uh huh.
think the first of which would be Tuesday and then Wednesday. Both of them 7 and 7:30, so they're evening games. But
On some on a similar note, I think that our most favorable matchup would be against the Phoenix Suns. One,
I
because of almost the same reason why I'm afraid of the Mavs, because they would be so motivated against us. I think we would be so motivated to beat the Suns because
I
they've
agree.
knocked us out
I
in the last two
agree.
years, right?
Um,
They knocked us out last year, and then the year they went to the
In the
finals.
first round, they knocked us out last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the conference finals, they knocked us out. Yes. So you're right about that. And I do agree that, there would be an added motivation. I think even more so, though, with the Phoenix Suns, I would probably favor that matchup just because the Phoenix Suns are going through a similar situation as the Clippers have been going through throughout the regular season. And that is they've kind of had trouble with teams that they should be beating.
Hmm.
They'll take their foot off the gas pedal. I personally think the Phoenix Suns are kind of front runners, particularly
Oh yeah.
Devin Booker, and I think that they kind of get a little bit too ahead of themselves when they shouldn't.
Right.
But I think
They're
that go
one
ahead.
of the worst fourth quarter teams in the league right now.
Yeah, is that true
No,
statistically?
actually, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I
and
mean,
so
especially in the playoffs, that would be especially how well we've been playing in the fourth quarter. I think that'd be barbecue chicken in the
it's
playoffs.
that, and then it's also a lack of size. They do have Yusuf Nurkic, but aside from that, they don't have a ton of viable options. In their front court, they have Drew Eubanks, Bol, who if Bol on Zoo is probably barbecue chicken just because
Yeah,
of body mass and strength. But yeah, they do lack some size, and I think that the Clippers do better against teams that don't have a ton of size.
yeah,
Um, which, going back to the Dallas Mavericks, I think would be one thing that they could use to their advantage against the Mavericks. The Mavericks obviously gained a lot of offense. For those that don't know, obviously Kyrie Irving is a Dallas Maverick, but aside from that, PJ Washington, they basically swapped out Grant Williams with PJ Washington, and they swapped out Rashawn Holmes for Daniel Gafford.
hmm
And so, while those two guys, are particularly PJ Washington offensively a lot better, in years past, we saw Dorian Finney Smith, who's not huge, but he plays a lot bigger. He gave Paul George and Kawhi Leonard a lot of trouble. He can guard the five and he can stretch the floor. Um, I think that they lost a lot of particularly defensive versatility size wise. Obviously, they have Derek Lively, who's had a great rookie season, and he is a true close to 7 footer, but he's dealing with some injuries. He's also a rookie. So I think that they've lost a little bit of defensive size defensively, particularly. And, the Clippers have seen it, or we've seen it with the Clippers when they've matched up against guards that are somewhat of a defensive liability. We really played well against Damian Lillard's Trailblazers for that reason, because we have such, Kawhi Leonard and PG are big wings that are
hmm
very physical. And so, while I think that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are a lot better than Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, I think that the Clippers can use that same sort of game plan where you just attack guards that have trouble guarding bigger wings, and use that to your advantage. I think the Dallas Mavericks lack of defense, although I will say I did see some advanced analytics that say that the Dallas Mavericks are like the fourth ranked team in defense over the last month, which is kind of scary.
really.
Yeah, but I mean, just from a personnel standpoint, I think that um, they might have trouble guarding our bigger wings. I don't know. I'm just trying to
I don't.
rationalize it because
I
we're probably
mean,
going to end up matching up against the
the
Dallas
thing is,
Mavericks.
is the thing is in the playoffs, it's all about matchups and hunting, and
Mm-hmm.
the way Luca hunts Zoo
Oh,
is the
he's the most
way.
egregious
Yeah,
hunter, I
but
guess.
that's has to be the way that Paul George and Kawhi hunt Luca, and not only demoralizes him, but that also tires him out,
Yeah,
so he doesn't go off as much on the offensive side. If he's
yeah,
guarding Kawhi and Paul George every possession, if they're looking for him every time he's on the floor, you
yeah.
know.
No, totally. And you saw it in Game 7, particularly in 2021, where
Hmm.
Kawhi Leonard down the stretch um, was trying to get Lucas switched onto him, and I think he hit back-to-back threes in Lucas' face,
Yeah,
and kind of put the series away. So I do agree that um, the Clippers' key to success in a potential matchup against the Dallas Mavericks would be to get those favorable matchups. And while
Mhm.
Luka has the size, uh, he does have his defensive shortcomings, and I think that's partially because he exerts so much energy on offense that he
Right.
doesn't really have enough energy to guard. But yeah, the Clippers in a potential matchup against the Mavericks need to do that. I think just as you said, be able to try and get favorable matchups switched and switched onto our stars.
Yeah.
Even James Harden, I think that James Harden with Luka switched onto him uh, could make something out of nothing in matchups like that. So
I would love to see James Harden go off in this playoffs. He's had the narrative of collapsing, being trash in playoffs. It literally his entire career. So I would like to see him do something this year. I mean, even last year, man, or was it last year or 2 years ago? What
well,
was
last
last year on
year
the?
people talk about James Harden's performance last year in the playoffs,
Is
particularly
it
that
that?
Dallas Mavericks commentator that like went on like a 3 minute rant about James Harden
Yeah,
um, choking in the playoffs. James Harden really did have a couple games where he kind of put the team on his
he
back,
dude,
and
he
Philly ended
had
up winning.
one game. He had one game where he scored 40, and then the very next game he had 5 points, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, like he's very up down, but I would like to see him score a consistent 15 to 20 points and lead the offense.
Well, here,
Have I feel like him having 10 plus assists and 15 20 points is not asking a lot from a guy who's a former MVP.
yeah, no, I think here would be my question to you. Um, would you want James Harden to be so you're saying that you want James Harden to be of the scoring mindset in the playoffs.
Yes,
You
I would
wouldn't want
like
him
it.
to be a facilitator.
I'd want him to be a facilitator, but for him to hit open shots. And like at the end of the game, if Paul George or Kawhi aren't hitting their shots, he needs to be able to be offensive and hit some shots of his own.
Yeah.
Um, I think that recently he's been extremely passive, almost like he's afraid to take the shot. I haven't
Hmm.
seen him hit his step back threes. I remember earlier in the season he hit that step back three that was a 4 point play.
Against
I
the
forgot
Rockets.
against the Rockets. So it's like those types of shots completely change our offense, and it motivates everyone and it gets the morale up. And I think that's what he's got to do. He can't just be passive, gets the ball, has an open shot, and he basically waits for Kawhi or Paul George to get open. He needs to be able to get the ball and see that the other players are guarded, and he needs to make something out of nothing. He's a former MVP. He's not, you know what I mean? He's not worse than Paul George or Kawhi in any sort of way. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So that's just kind of how I feel about James Harden right now.
No, I mean it's a good point, and I think a lot of Clippers fans probably share that sentiment. Um, So basically, I think as it stands right now, there's a good chance that we're going to play the Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe next week, depending on what the standings are, we can kind of maybe talk about any other potential matchups. But
We'll
right
know for
now,
sure next week, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right now it's looking like it's going to be the Mavericks. So my last question for you on this topic, Rolla, would be in a potential matchup against this Dallas team. Who are you picking to be the X factor for both sides? The Mavericks
Oh,
and the Clippers.
so for the X factor, or okay, I would say Clippers have two X factors.
Okay.
The number one X factor is obviously Paul George every
Oh,
time.
okay. I did not think you were
Um,
going to say that. But
yeah, no, Paul George is the X factor in every single matchup, in every single game, in every single walk of life, dude.
okay, yeah, yeah.
uh, no, he. I mean, if Paul George plays well, we blow out every team. Like, let's be real. Kawhi's gonna get 25. If our role players do decent, and Paul George has a 30 plus game, I say we blow out every team. I say this Mavs matchup is over in 5 games if Paul George plays the way he did today.
Hmm.
That's just me. But I mean, that's unrealistic. One, because teams are going to game plan around that, and two, nobody's perfect. So, and especially Paul George.
Wow,
So,
Rolla giving Paul George a little bit of leeway. I
no,
never
I'm,
thought I'd
I'm,
see this day.
no, I'm being real. Of course, I'm going to talk. I'm going to be pissed, but Paul George has to play extremely well in 4 out of 7 games for us to win this series. And then the second X factor would be the great Terrence Mann.
I knew it. See,
The
that's
great
what I was
Terrence Mann,
expecting.
baby.
So, would you want Terrence to pick up Luca most of the
Yes.
time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I want Terrence Mann to pick up Luca. And even if Terrence Mann gets torched, at least the Mavs won't have someone to consistently hunt down. If we have Terrence Mann, who is Luca? If we have Terrence Mann, we have a small ball lineup. I guess they would be hunting Norman Powell, and even that, I feel like Norman Powell is decent.
Well, what
I
about
mean,
Zoo?
I don't think to end. I don't think to end the games, Zoo should be on the court. I don't think Zoo should, in the last 7 minutes of the game, Zoo shouldn't see the court at all, because
It's
every
tough.
single play it's going to be barbecue chicken cash in his eye.
It's tough. It's tough because, well, actually, I'll let you give who you think is going to be the X factor for the Mavs, and then I'll
Oh,
respond to what you said.
X factor for the Mavs is Kyrie.
Okay.
I think everyone else on the. I don't think there are that many. I so on the Mavs, the only two players that I believe can create their own shot and score on their own time are Luca and Kyrie. And if Kyrie plays poorly and it's just Luca, then I mean, that's not enough to beat us.
Yeah. Um, that's fair. That's fair. I think. Okay. So what you were saying, to piggyback off of what you were saying, as far as like, there's nobody, or actually, no, you were saying that Zoo probably shouldn't touch the court
Hmm.
in the last like stretch of minutes, to
Right.
close out games and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, the issue, because like normally I would agree with you if we had the same roster that we had the last two times that we were playing against the Mavericks, because
Hmm.
the luxury that Ty Lue had was you take Zoo out and you put one of our bigger backup wings like Nico or Marcus Morris,
Hmm.
or Rocco even, to basically play the five. Those guys have a better time of hanging, defensively, hanging on the perimeter. Not getting, not giving up too much separation to jump shooters.
Hmm.
Now, we don't have that much size outside of our stars, on the wing. We have Amir Coffey, we have PJ
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
um, but I think that those guys probably aren't as reliable as
But
a
I think
Nico Batum
I think
or
PJ Tucker to like let's say we have PJ Tucker to end the game. I think a lineup of Kawhi, Paul George, um, James Harden. But James, I mean, the thing about James Harden is he
he's
is
going to get
on,
hunted too.
he's gonna get hunted. But if he's trying, he is somewhat decent on defense. He's not like a small dude. He's not like a skinny guy. You know what I mean? He just is hunted because he doesn't try on defense.
Well, he's a better post defender than people give him credit for.
Yeah,
He's not a bad perimeter defender, but I think that he's just a little lazy. And
exactly.
like James Harden's game plan a lot of the times on the perimeter is, okay, if a guy gets past me, which he normally does, I'm going to corral him and try and force him into my big.
Right.
Um, which in this case would probably be Zoo. So my game plan for this Mavs matchup is, and it's kind of something that we've done the last two times that we've played the Mavs, is you almost have to just let Luca hunt and cook and not let him get anybody else involved, particularly because this iteration of the Mavs has more offensive weapons than they've had in the last 2 years. So you let him get Kyrie involved. You let him get Tim Hardaway, who does a pretty good job against us in the playoffs. You let him get PJ Washington involved. Derek Jones Jr. You let these guys get involved, and it opens up things for the Mavs in a way that they could really take advantage of us. So I think that don't the Clippers need to make sure they don't shy away from their game plan just because Luka's hunting guys that are defensive liabilities or whatever.
Can
Because
I?
I think that we need to try and, I mean, obviously run single coverage, play the best defense that you can against Luka, but he's such a generational offensive talent that he's going to get his buckets. Doesn't matter who's on him, whether it's Kawhi,
I
PG,
disagree.
whatever.
I
You disagree?
disagree.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
Are you are you hoping or assuming that we can? outscore Luca basically taking open shots on
Not
the
open
offense.
shots. Not
No,
open
but I think
shots.
I genuinely think that like Zubats guarding Luca is basically giving him an open shot. I genuinely believe so. The way he's torched Zoo the past couple years, it's it's almost like Zoo is a child, bro.
I
It's
mean, no,
really
that's it's
bad.
a fair
It's
assessment. It's a
really
fair
bad, bro.
assessment.
It's really bad, dude. Like Luca is gonna get like in that final quarter. If we just let him 1-on-1 Zoo, he'll probably score like 20 points. I'm not even
Okay,
kidding.
but look at what we did. We'll talk about it when we covered this Nuggets win that we had. But Jokic had a monster triple double against us when we played them the other day, and he was kind of taking over the game offensively. And we still found ways to make sure that he didn't get other guys involved, and we won the game.
But that's the thing. I don't think that. So the difference between that and with Luca is that Jokic isn't of an offensive mindset the way that Luca is. Jokic's first mindset isn't to score. His is to like I'm gonna make the best play for my team. If I have to score, I'll score. Luca's mindset is I'm gonna score, and if I can't score, then I'll pass the ball, and that's the difference. Jokic, the difference in that game with Jokic, at the end of the game, he wasn't like trying to score every shot. He wasn't trying to do everything himself, and then if he couldn't, he was passing out. He was making the right play, and at the end of the day, his teammates failed him, and that's kind of what I would want for Luca. But that's not what's going to happen. Luka's going to be looking to score, and when he finds Zoo in front of him, he's going to score every single time, and that's why it's not going to work because we're assuming that Luka's going to miss shots, and he probably won't because we're going to
Luke
have
is
to.
gonna miss shots. He's not
No,
a
but he's gonna,
robot.
dude. He's not gonna miss against. You've seen these NBA players in
I
warmups and shit,
have.
dude. They don't miss.
I
Luka's
have.
not gonna miss, and you're hoping that on the other end, with them having their defense, their regular defense, we're gonna be able to score more that way than Luka scoring against Zoo.
Yeah. So I guess my bottom line would be the Clippers just need to make sure they don't overreact to Luca doing what he always does against every single team, and that's put the ball in the basket. We can't over. It's the same thing with Jokic. The Clippers cannot overreact when generational players put up generational numbers offensively. Just run single coverage, and yes, that means take Zoo off the floor and put PJ Tucker in or put Amir Coffey in. But if
Exactly,
if
but
if
that
these guys are probably going to get torched. Maybe not to the extent that Zoo would be, but these guys are probably going to get torched regardless. And so the Clippers need to make sure they're not over helping on Luca and because the thing is, if he gets PJ Washington just had like a 36-point game the other day, like
I promise
you
I
know,
don't give a fuck about PJ Washington, dude. I'm sorry.
bro, don't
I don't
say
give a.
that. Don't say
I
that.
don't care, dude. I genuinely don't care.
Okay.
In the playoffs, it's a different animal, bro, and you know that.
No, I do know that, but these are guys that can hit meaningful shots. It's the same thing that like
They
when we
can hit
play.
meaningful shots, but I'm not gonna be bummed if PJ Washington wins one game for them. It is what it is,
I'll
and
be
I'd rather,
bummed if PJ Washington wins a playoff game
but I'd
against this.
rather, I'd rather PJ Washington beat us because that's outside of the game plan. Our game plan is to stop Luca, and if Luca beats us, then what the hell was our get? Like, what did
What
we
about
do?
Kyrie?
I mean, we're also going to game plan for Kyrie, but the game plan is going to be significantly larger to stop Luca or around Luca and Kyrie than PJ Washington. If PJ Washington hits a crazy shot or whatever, it is what it is. We move on to the next game. He's not going to do that. He's not. PJ Washington is not going to beat us 4 games in a row. Luca will. That's the issue. And
It's already
I,
begun, Clipper
I think,
Nation.
I
It's
think
already
that
begun.
it doesn't matter. And like you're saying, Luca is going to Luca. He's going to score. He's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to get his numbers because he's a generational player. But I think that's why we can't have Zoo in the fourth quarter playing meaningful minutes because of that reason. But I think Zoo can play in the first 3 quarters. I don't think the three quarters, and I hate to say it, I don't think it is do or die the first 3 quarters. I mean, whatever can happen. We go on runs. They go on runs. It is what it is. And then if it's close in the fourth quarter, Zoo cannot be on that floor, dude. I'm sorry.
That's fair. That's fair. The thing is with a lot of the Zoo narrative against the Mavericks, people people like to pretend that Zoo is like a non-factor in these matchups,
Right.
and that's just not the case. I think that Zoo has the potential to be extremely meaningful,
Mhm.
particularly because they lost size in Porzingis, and they lost size. They still have Kleba, but they the Mavericks giving a good chunk of rotation minutes to Daniel Gafford, who's a bit undersized, and things of that nature. Zoo can really punish the Mavericks down low on certain possessions and really set the tone in terms of getting offensive rebounds or securing the defensive glass and stuff like that. But I will agree, as long as Zoo gets a chunk of minutes, meaningful minutes in this Maverick series,
Mhm.
I don't mind him resting not resting, but sitting out the fourth if it's advantageous for the Clippers. I hate the narrative that Zoo's like this stool on the court, like against the
And
Mavericks, because he really does contribute. He gets hunted, but he's going to be as important as a lot of other guys in this
right.
Maverick series.
It's not his fault. It's just honestly, it's Steph Curry's fault. But I can get into that in another
Okay.
day, in another day, another time.
Okay. Yeah.
But this is a very guard heavy league, and if you're not able to guard the perimeter against those quick step back type players, you're gonna get torched and you're gonna get hunted. Like I said, the first 3 quarters isn't really as big of a deal, but if it's towards the end of the game and they run the same 5 plays against the same guy and score the same way in the final minutes of a game, that's a problem. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Yeah. So we'll, like I said, we'll touch a little bit more on this, particularly next week, because depending on when we record this, we will know definitively who we're playing against
Mhm.
in the first round of the playoffs. Some meaningful games
Hopefully the
coming up.
Suns.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see some meaningful games coming up for the LA Clippers, particularly the 2 back-to-back games against the Suns. So we're going to get into that coming up. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll just jump right into the recaps from this last week. All right, folks, we are back. Yeah, recaps. So the first of which was a 109-95 loss against the Sacramento Kings, who didn't have Malik Monk, did not have Kevin Herter. This one was tough, as have been a lot of these losses throughout the season. Um, Things just kind of got away from the Clippers pretty quickly in this one. Uh, this was in Sacramento, so their crowd was into it, and the Sacramento crowd is great. They've been great for a long time, and it's a hard building to play in, but the energy just wasn't there. Um, this was, I think, the first game that Kawhi Leonard didn't play.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Kawhi Leonard has been out with knee soreness. It is in the right knee, which has been the knee that he's had significant injuries in. Um, I will say that I've heard some talk, heard some chatter that a lot of this is precautionary, and it's a way for Kawhi to get some rest after playing, a record number of games in recent history for him. He's one to sit and rest and not play back to backs, but Kawhi Leonard's played the most games this season that he has since he's been a Spur. So you know, I think this is kind of just a way for him to get some rest and charge up for the playoffs. That's what I've heard. Obviously, my word is not bond, but I do have some sources that I trust. So that is what I've heard. That's neither here nor there, because this was a loss to the Kings, and this was the first game that we didn't have Kawhi. So, while Kawhi would have helped in this one, I think this was one that we could have and should have won. Looking at the box score in this one, PG with 18, Norman Powell with 17, James Harden with 6 in this
Dude.
one. This was not great. Russell Westbrook was great off the bench with 20, 7 for 14 from him, 50% from the field. But yeah, this was a troubling one for James Harden for sure. He played the most minutes out of everybody on the team as well, and was only able to chip in with 6 points. Yeah, Rolla, what's your takeaway from that? I know that you probably have a lot to say about that, but
Yeah, it's just a little frustrating because, like as you said, Kawhi didn't play this game, and I'm sure that they knew ahead of time Kawhi wasn't going to play. And for the number one option on our team to not be on the court, that moves Paul George up to number one, and then James Harden up to number two. And for James Harden to be the number two option and to score 6 points is crazy. I can't believe that, and it's been very frustrating for me with James Harden just because he's been so passive. I don't know what it is. It almost either he is injured, or he is lazy, or he's tired, or something. Because this is not the James Harden that we were seeing at the beginning of the season when we were really, when we were really balling. He was scoring 20 plus points and 10 plus assists, and it's really sad and frustrating to see that. And not only for as a fan, but for the team to see that and know that the playoffs are coming in 2 weeks, and one of your stars is scoring single digits in a game against a Western Conference team that we could see in the playoffs.
yeah. No,
Um,
it has been troubling, particularly on James Harden's side of things. Sometimes it looks like there's an inability to recognize when to take over the game, when to be the facilitator. Like it almost looks like he's lost on his role with this team. But I will say, obviously, I think a big part of this loss was on James Harden for not being aggressive enough and not finding a
right.
way to get it done. But I have to mention that in some of these losses, particularly like over the course of the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the one thing that I've noticed as well is our bench has an issue, or not even just our bench, but a lot of our role players, and even PG and Kawhi for that matter. But basically, everybody that's on the floor around James Harden, there's times where James Harden you'll see the double coming. You'll see opposing teams try and take the ball out of James Harden's hands the moment he crosses half court, and a lot of the time our role players kind of just stand in the corners, or there's not any off-ball movement, or any nobody's flashing, nobody's
Hmm.
coming to get help James Harden get the ball out of his hands. And I think that is something that has contributed to these tough losses, as well as like a passivity, if that's, I don't even know if that's a word, but that passiveness from our role players to try and command the ball, and not even necessarily just to take the shot, but to try and get the offense moving. There's not enough off ball movement. Everybody's kind of just standing around waiting for something to happen. And these are the plays that some people should be setting down screens for guys to get open, or making cuts to the rim, or making something happen, get the defense moving, so that James Harden's not just running full sprint into a set defense. um, and that was pretty apparent for me in this one. The bench didn't look great, and while it's stupid to expect our bench guys to be putting up 20-25 outside of norm. 3 points from Tice. Bones Highland played 8 minutes, only 2 points. Amir really struggled in this one. 24 points, only 24 minutes, only 3 points. Brandon Boston got a little bit of burn. He did get 9 points, but a lot of that was in garbage time. This one was a tough one for Terrence. Um, I think that when obviously we need to hold our stars accountable, and they're the ones getting paid the big bucks. They should be the ones with the higher level of responsibility. But I think that trickles down to our bench too. While the role isn't as significant and they don't have to do as much as our stars, they need to do their jobs as well, because their job is to make things less difficult for our stars.
Right.
And you see it when we play against other teams. Why is this random guy going off against us? For example, with the Kings, Davion Mitchell was hitting an absurd amount of threes, and Harrison Barnes stepped up. And if we can celebrate those guys for really helping their teams win, then we have to be able to have the same energy with our team. And if our role players can't step up and contribute, they don't have to do much, but just contribute in a way that makes things easier for the whole team, then I'm going to have
Right.
to call it out. Amir has been so good in his time with the Clippers, so I really can't nitpick much. But there's times when he, kind of he'll catch the ball at the 3-point line and he'll jab step 3 times and pump fake, and then the offense just kind of stops. And
Right.
everybody's got to be on a string. Everybody that touches that ball has to contribute to the play. And sometimes we just don't see that from our bench guys. So while Harden takes a big share of the blame for this one, I think that our bench just needs to be better. But yeah, there's not a whole lot much else to say about this game. On the Kings side, Sabonis and Fox kind of picked us apart. Triple double from Sabonis, 20 rebounds. Oh, near triple double. He was 1 assist shy of a triple double, but 20 rebounds, 9 assists, 22 points from Sabonis. Keegan Murray hit big shots. Was 8 for 18 from the floor, 19 points. De'Aaron Fox with 20. Like I said, Davion Mitchell, 4 threes. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but he seemed to hit them against us. Trey Lyles hit some big ones. The Kings stepped up and played hard, and they're down 2 key pieces in Malik Monk and Kevin Herter, so they found a way to get the win, a win that they really needed. But this one was tough, and it's the same thing that we've been saying throughout the course of the season. It's like the Clippers will string together some good games, and then they'll lose again that they're supposed to. And this, to
Yep.
me, the Kings are a good team, but to me, this was a game that we should have won. So this one was tough, but we played the Nuggets. I think was it a second night of a back-to-back? No. There was a game in between.
Yeah.
The Kings game was the last game of a road trip back home against the Denver Nuggets, and this one was a rock fight throughout the game. The Clippers looked a little uninspired to start, and then the second quarter kind of comes around. Harden ended up having, I think, 14 or 15 in the second, and we went into halftime actually up 4. One thing that I noticed about this game early on, and I have to give a lot of props to Ty Lue, is the Clippers were sticking to the game plan of running single coverage against Jokic, which is something that I've been begging for
Yeah.
most of the time that we play the Nuggets. Jokic is such a gifted passer, and he's got so much awareness, and all of his team around him is on such a string, and they play so together that the moment that he even feels the double coming, that ball is going to MPJ or KCP
Right.
or Aaron Gordon, and it's an immediate bucket either from 3 or at the rim. And the Clippers did a really good job of staying disciplined and running single coverage, and they were able to do that because one guy that really stood out to me in this one was Ivica Zubats.
Ooh,
He
interesting.
did a fantastic job of making sure that the Clippers didn't really have to double, because he was at least, obviously Jokic went off. But there was times when Zoo really held his own and made things tough for Jokic. Him and PJ Tucker, and I got to give PJ
Yeah, I
Tucker
was gonna say
his
PJ Tucker.
I got to give PJ Tucker his flowers as well. PJ Tucker in the matchups against Jokic really made him uncomfortable, and made things a little bit difficult. And I think those two really set the tone defensively. But yeah, in this one, James Harden was really aggressive in that second quarter, kind of played more of a facilitator role down the stretch. Paul George with 28, 10 for 21 from the field. Um, Paul George was huge in this one. And there was a period of time in the third quarter where things were kind of going either way. The Nuggets were missing a ton of shots, but the Clippers kind of couldn't put them away. And things got really, really close. The Clippers ended up winning this one by 2, and the Nuggets had a chance to win this one at the buzzer, on a Jokic 3 that PJ Tucker defended pretty well. But down the stretch, again, like I said, Zoo had a monster game. Zoo ended up getting the defensive stand against Jokic in the last 30, 40 seconds of the game, and was hitting clutch free throws. I think Zoo went to the line 3 or 4 times down the
Right.
stretch and hit all of his free throws. This was a fantastic, fantastic game from Ivica Zubac, so I got to give him some credit. Amir Coffey had a really good
He
bounce
was
back
balling.
game, not just necessarily from offensively, but Amir chipped in with, I believe, 6 rebounds. That's really good from our bench, and things like that, little things like that is what I expect from our bench. Rolla, what did you see from this one that you liked the most?
Yeah. So, like I've said in the past in previous podcasts, um, I genuinely don't think that has more talent than Paul George. I think Paul George is a more talented player than Jokic. I think Paul George, when he's hitting on all cylinders, affects the game more than Jokic does. And I think that whenever we match up against this Nuggets team, I truly don't believe that we should be losing to this team. And if we see them in the playoffs, I'll say the same thing. Uh, just because I think that Paul George, when he plays at his best, can cancel out the effects that Jokic has on his team. And then I think the rest of our team, Kawhi, James Harden, can do enough to win us a game. And in this game in particular, I think Paul George's effect on the team was that of Jokic. And I think the rest of our team played better than the rest of their team. And then at the end of the day, we won by 2 points.
They
At
didn't
the end
have
of the
Jamal Murray, but we didn't
exactly,
have
we didn't
Kawhi,
have
so it kind of
exactly.
canceled
So
itself.
that's exactly what I'm saying. And at the end of the day, this was the game where Paul George hit a big three, and then he got that was this the one where he got the block at the end of the game,
I
or
think that
was
might have
that?
been today.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was against uh, uh, Kelly Tsunami Poppy Kelly
Oh yeah,
Oubre.
yeah, yeah. That was a while ago,
Um,
brother. That was
yeah,
a
my
while
bad.
ago, brother.
Yeah,
But he did
yeah,
he did
but
get a big block today against the Cavs. But yeah,
but
no,
he still had a big game to end the
no,
game
he did 28
against the
points.
Nuggets.
28
Yeah.
points. He looked really aggressive, for sure.
So yeah, personally, I think that whenever we match up against the Nuggets, I always expect us to beat them. I remember one game earlier this season, and that was kind of what I was getting at, talking about the matchup against the Mavs, was that there was a game against the Nuggets where Jokic and the Nuggets ran the same play like 3 or 4 times to end the game, and that's how they beat us. And like to your point, we kept doubling Jokic, and then Jokic would basically pass off to the guy we were coming off of to
Yeah.
double him, and it was barbecue chicken at that point. And we had PJ Tucker on Jokic this game, and I thought PJ Tucker did a fantastic job. And that's kind of where I was getting. I remember. I don't know if you remember when you were kind of frustrated with PJ Tucker, and I said that PJ Tucker's a champion. He knows how to play the game. He's won a ring. At the end of the day, I think he'll help our team. I think that in the
Yeah.
playoffs, I think we're going to see PJ Tucker really help us because he knows what it takes to win. I think on our team, it's only PJ Tucker and Kawhi with rings, right?
Norman Powell.
Oh, and Norman Powell. So, I mean, we have people that have been there before. It couldn't hurt to have someone else like PJ Tucker who's been there before, the most recent person who's been there, kind of make those impacts on our team against, very, very, very good teams that we're probably going to see at the end of the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean totally. My frustration with PJ Tucker was not necessarily. Um, I mean, it was what he was
Yeah,
giving us
you called him fucking trash, dude.
because he was playing like trash. He was playing like trash,
Okay.
and he has been playing better. So I will give PJ Tucker a lot of credit. But my big thing with PJ Tucker was the way he was handling his business. I was
Right.
sick of hearing about like he was throwing shade to the team. Kind of when he was asked about like his role in the team and stuff like that, that was kind of what soured my perspective of PJ Tucker as a Clipper. He's really had plays where he's stepped up and he's looked good, and if we get that version of PJ Tucker, then I will absolutely welcome it. But
Mm.
just what rubbed me the wrong way was the fact that he didn't seem to realize why he wasn't getting regular minutes throughout the regular season.
Right.
But it is what it is. That's water under the bridge. There will come a time where we might really need him.
I think we will for most of
So
the matchups. Personally,
if he can play the way that he's been playing lately, then I'm absolutely okay with him, you know, having a role on this team.
Mhm.
So yeah, he was great, and Zoo was great. The team really stepped up down the stretch in this one. This was a very
Yeah,
important win, and the team found a way to get a gritty win that went down to the final possession. Um, and it kind of opened things up for us, and you really saw that confidence that the Clippers had after a win like this against the Utah Jazz. Now, uh, in games past throughout this season, I would have said, okay, we're playing a Utah Jazz team that's resting pretty much their entire starting lineup. Um, this should be an easy win, but with the way that the Clippers have played on and off throughout the season, you kind of never know what version of the Clippers you're getting, right?
right,
But in this one, you can really see that there was a palatable confidence that the Clippers were playing with, and the Clippers absolutely ran the Jazz out of the building. Um,
torch,
they
dude.
they kind of it was a wire to wire win, and the level of confidence and swagger that the Clippers were playing with was was really a testament to you know how locked in they were residually after that win against the Nuggets. The starting lineup. This was I think the third game without Kawhi Leonard. So the starting lineup was Tucker, George, Zubats, Harden, and Mann, and everybody except for Tucker scored double digits. And like we didn't really need Tucker to score double digits, but we saw
Mhm.
contributions off the bench. Daniel Tice with 11. Russ gave 17 points. Russ was fantastic in this one. The energy was at an all-time high. He was 8 for 11 from the field, so super, super efficient.
Right,
18 from Norm. Uh, yeah, it was just, and most of the stars, I believe, sat in the fourth. I think we were up at one point, we were up by 30 something in this game. We ended up winning by 29. But this is the kind of thing that you want to see from the Clippers when we play a team like this. James Harden played 33 minutes. I think a big part of that was trying to get him back into kind of a flow, trying to get his shot back. But other than
right,
that, the 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 highest minutes besides Amir Coffey with 31 was 26 from Norman Powell. PG only played 21 minutes. Terrence with 23, Zoo with 24. This was a great game, just in terms of handling business.
right.
Did you have anything from this one that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, to be completely real, um, at this point, this was on Friday night. I was watching the UConn Iowa
Iowa
women's
game.
game. Shout out
Yeah.
to the women's basketball this year; they've been killing it
Yeah.
and really
Absolutely.
promoting their stuff.
Totally.
But yeah, I checked the score after the first quarter, and we were up by 25. It was like 20, 25 or 26, and I was
Yeah.
like, I guess there's nothing
Let's
to
see
really
what
watch
Caitlin
here.
Clark's up to. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I guess there's nothing really to watch here. And then at halftime, we were up by what, like 30, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh well, unless something tragic happens, I mean, it should be an easy dub. I mean, looks like Paul George, and this is kind of like towards that kind of getting to that load management type of thing where this is load management without the actual tag.
Totally.
Is we blow out a team in the first half, and then Paul George, you can chill for the rest of the game. We got it. We're up by 30. We're chilling, and that's exactly what I want to see. It's like no one scored more than 20 points. It's a complete team effort. Paul George, like you said, Paul George played 21 points.
He
Terrence
played
Mann
21
23.
points.
Sorry, Paul George played 21 minutes. Played 21 minutes was plus 18. Terrence Mann 23 minutes was plus 23. And chill for the rest of the game. We need you guys to be healthy for the playoffs. So this was a game where I feel like Flipper Nation didn't really have to worry about. We all enjoyed our Friday nights,
Yeah, it was a
and
nice change of pace. We weren't
yeah,
losing 5 pounds of sweat down the
exactly.
stretch of this game, and yeah, this one was awesome. There's really not much else to say other than the fact that the Clippers handled business, and it gave them an opportunity to find the energy down the stretch of the next game, which we're about to talk about, the Clippers and Cavs game that just finished up about an hour and a half ago. The Clippers ended up winning this one 120 to 118. This one was one of my favorites of the season. Kawhi didn't play in this one either, so it was kind of
Hmm.
just the James Harden, Paul George show. Um, The Clippers got down by 26 points in this one, and it kind of looked like, more of the same. The Clippers kind of under appreciating or coming in with a lack of focus against a team that didn't have Donovan Mitchell in this one. Donovan Mitchell played the first night of a back-to-back against the Lakers, and then I don't think he's playing back-to-backs at all. So he rested in this one. But the Cavs got off to a big lead. The Cavaliers' size looked to be a problem. Darius Garland was kind of having his way. 28 points for the game from him. I mean, he's obviously a very good player, but he got some open shots that he probably shouldn't have gotten. Got a lot of daylight behind the 3-point line, and he was hitting. But yeah, Clippers went down 26 in this one. We just looked a step slow and went into the half down. Let's see, I think 11 points in the half we were down, and things started falling apart to start that third quarter. And the Clippers gave up 80 points in the first half too, which was just a testament to how little defense was being played. Oh, and also I'm completely wrong. The Clippers were down 21 points.
Yeah, 21 points
at halftime. But Clippers kind of came out of the third a little slow, and then Russ and Zoo particularly really, really got the team back into focus towards the middle of that third quarter. Zoo was kind of asserting his dominance down low and getting to the hoop and scoring, and he was providing resistance on the other end to the Cavalier bigs, which is not easy. Evan Mobley is so mobile, and they have their bigs can cover ground. It's not easy to stay in front of those guys, but we found a way to get it done. Russ was kind of leading by example with his energy, and the Clippers slowly started to chip away. And James Harden actually sat most of, if not the entire fourth of this one. And in the fourth quarter, it was the Paul George show, man. The bench ended up waking up, led by Zoo and Russ. And basically down the stretch, we got the stops that we needed. I think there were several minutes where the Cavs didn't score a single bucket. You could really see that the energy was starting to turn. The crowd was starting to get into it. Clipper Nation was out in full force in this one. Obviously, I wasn't there, but just on TV, the crowd was loud, and they were calling for defense. And basically down the stretch, Terrence Mann hits a big three. Amir Coffey follows that up with a giant three, I think, to tie it or take a 3-point lead. And then Paul George put the team on his back, played 44 minutes, was 10 for 24 from the field, 39 points from PG with 11 rebounds and 7 assists. One thing, aside from 39 points, obviously that's nothing to scoff at, but the 11 rebounds to me from Paul George was something that's going to kind of go under the radar in this one, but he was hustling. He was hustling to give the Clippers a chance to just continue to chip away at the lead. Keeping the Cavs off the offensive glass, grabbing the rebounds. They are keeping them off the offensive glass, taking the ball down the court himself, and he was forcing his way to the free throw line. This was a masterclass from Paul George down the stretch. Obviously, Terrence and Coffey hit those big threes, but Paul George ended up getting to his spot, crossing over Evan Mobley. I think crossed Evan Mobley into Max Strus, so nobody was really able to contest his shot, hits the midi to kind of ice the game, and then gets the block on, I think, Darius Garland.
Yeah.
And then Russ ended up closing out on a Max Strus three that would have won them the game. Ball didn't even come close to touching the rim. This was an all-out team effort from the Clippers led by PG-13 down the stretch.
Yeah, I also got to say, 24 of 24 from free throw from our entire team.
Is that true? We didn't miss one.
We didn't miss a single free throw, and we won the game by 2 points. Like, dude,
I didn't even clock that. That is incredible.
Insane. Paul George 16 of 16 from the line.
Well, that's the thing too, is he was doing all the little things. He was forcing his way to the line. Paul George gets a horrible whistle, but he was forcing the refs to say, "Okay, that's a foul. Send him to the line."
Right.
It slowed the game down. It took the Cavs out of their flow. It was huge.
Right. Yeah, it was a fantastic game. At the end of the game, I feel like we made the right play every single every single time we were on offense, every single time we were on defense. I had no complaints. Paul George was balling his brain off, brain out.
He was balling that brain off, huh?
Yeah, he was balling, and I have no complaints. I mean, like I said, if Paul George plays like this in the playoffs, there isn't a team that can beat us. And like, it's not even close. This is a guy who is a number one option, and for some reason chooses not to play like it. But when he does, he's basically unstoppable. Like, he's crossing dudes to the ground on a game winner and
Yeah.
then making the block on the other end. It's unbelievable. 7 assists, 16 of 16 from the line. What more do you want
And
from your superstar?
totally. And I got to give credit to James Harden too. James Harden started this game. Obviously, we were down, but you can tell that James Harden really was trying to get the ball in the basket.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up finishing the game 22 points. 4 for 8 from three, so he was shooting 50% from three. He was taking 8 threes. To me, is a great sign.
That's a fantastic sign.
He was a minus 20, but I mean, all the guys that were on the floor during that Cavs run were going to be, their plus minus is going to be skewed a bit.
Right.
Um, but yeah, big games from our bench too. That was my biggest gripe at halftime. Actually, was PG and James Harden looked aggressive. We were down, but they looked aggressive. A lot of our guys were just a little scared offensively too. It was the same thing that I just said earlier. Jab step, pump fake on the open threes, passing a grenade to a guy in the corner that's double teamed, and it's just a waste of possession. But
Right.
Terrence Mann and Amir hit, the two coldest shots besides the Paul George bucket towards the at the end of the game. Norman
Mm-hmm.
Powell woke up. Our bench really, really stepped up in this one, and it allowed Paul George to kind of close it out.
Right.
And while we can appreciate the 39 points from Paul George, the big thing that stood out for him was the 44 minutes, the 11 rebounds, the lockdown defense, getting to the line, shooting 16 free throws. Just a masterclass from Paul George, and this is what
Mm-hmm.
you want to see so close to the playoffs. I mean, this one was, like I said, this was one of my favorite games of the season, and it just helps secure home court advantage. So this was a great win when it looked like we were about to get blown out again.
Right.
Yeah, not much else to say about this one. Rolla, did you want to say anything else to round this one out?
I don't have anything else to say about this, but we can get right into previews.
Yeah, let's just jump right
Um,
into it.
so on Tuesday and Wednesday, we will be playing a back to back against the Phoenix Suns. I believe the first one will be at in Phoenix, and the second one will be a home game on Tuesday, Wednesday. And I mean, honestly, I think this entire season, this entire year, we've kind of been handing it to the Phoenix handing it to the Phoenix Suns.
Either way,
I
either
don't
way,
think have we lost to them at all this season. I think I remember
I
at the
would have to
beginning of
check the
this.
stats on that. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
think
so.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think so.
so. Uh, we're just a bad matchup for them, especially when Kawhi's playing because he can guard Kevin Durant, and then they have basically all perimeter players, and then they have Nurkic, and our team was basically built to guard perimeter players.
Yeah,
You have Paul George, you have Amir Coffey, you have Terrence Mann that can all do a pretty good job on Devin Booker, can all do a pretty good job on Bradley Beal, and if we have Kawhi playing, we can. Kawhi's probably one of maybe two or three players in the league that can guard Kevin Durant somewhat.
yeah,
Uh, so I mean, depending on what and on if Kawhi plays this week, we'll see. But I don't think that this is a game. These are two games that I think we should win. Honestly, I think that the matchup favors us, and with the way Paul George played today, I don't think that the Suns can beat us, especially if it's a close game to heading into the fourth quarter. The Suns have played horribly this entire season in the fourth quarter. And as you can see, the past couple games, we've really been picking it up in the fourth quarter. So I just think that gap between the talent and scoring level is really going to push us forward to end the season. What about
totally.
you? What do you
I
think?
no, I think this is a very interesting 2 game stretch because with Kawhi Leonard still sitting out, I'd be curious to see particularly in the first game, because they're going to be back-to-back games.
Yeah.
Particularly in the first game, I would be curious to see how seriously the Clippers take this one. Um, I think personally, I think that we'll probably end up resting Kawhi in the first night of this one, or keeping him out or whatever. We'll try our best to get the win. If we do end up getting the win, I would not be shocked if Kawhi sits and another one of PG or Harden sit in this one as well, because I'm going to play a devil's advocate here for a second. The Phoenix Suns getting an extra win and possibly knocking the Dallas Mavericks out of the 5 seed might not
Oh,
be a bad idea. So I think that
but who are the Mavs playing?
like their next games, I would have to
Yeah,
double check
yeah.
that. But yeah, I think it would all be predicated on what the standings are, what the Western Conference looks like at that time. It's only a couple games
Hmm.
away, but a couple days
Oh, you
away.
think we might just hand them a win?
I hate that, and I don't think that it's necessarily the right thing. I don't want to anger the
I
basketball
mean,
gods.
not hand them the win, but like if we just don't play Paul George and James Harden,
Yeah,
I mean,
just giving some rest to guys. I think that it's certainly possible. I think that it's certainly
interesting.
possible. And then after that, after those two Suns games, we play the Jazz and we play the Rockets after that. The Rockets,
Hmm.
depending on where they finish, they might be eliminated from playoff
I
contention.
think they
If
already are.
Are they after the loss of the Mavs today?
They might be. They're
So
like 2 games or 3 games behind the Warriors. So
if that's the case, I mean, this last 2.5 games with the second Phoenix Suns matchup counting as a half game, I would not be shocked to see a lot of resting from the core of this Clipper team. So it's going to be interesting to see what the matchups are, how
mhm.
things kind of uh, how things are laid out over the course of this next 4 games. We're going to talk about all of that next week because we'll have a better idea. But a lot of things are kind of in flux over the course of the next week. So I'm just kind of interested to see what the landscape of the Western Conference is going to be on a game by game basis.
Yeah, this next week is going to be very interesting. I think. I mean, all the Western Conference teams, other than the top
Top three.
three,
Yeah,
are all fighting for their playoff spots. Like the Lakers are in the 8th seed now.
I can't believe it.
The Suns are in the 7th seed. Mavs are in this, or no, Suns are in the 6th. Pelicans are in 7. Mavs are in 5. We're in 4. So it's just, I mean, I think that we see a lot of number switches. I could see the Lakers dropping down again. You could see, I don't know where the Warriors are, but I wouldn't be shocked if they went up. But I'm excited for the next couple weeks of basketball
Yeah, it's going to be
and for the
very
plan.
interesting, and I'm nervous but excited about you know what's in store for the Clippers going into the playoffs. I think the biggest thing is just making sure you continue this next stretch of games, particularly during the games that our core plays, with a playoff mindset.
Hmm.
Get things right, tailor things to be able to match that energy, that playoff energy, that intensity. Um, because as I've said throughout this season, if we aren't beating ourselves, if this Clipper team is not beating themselves, we can win any game in front of us.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
getting in the right habits and getting in the right mindset, I think, is the name of the game, and we will touch on all of that next week. If you don't have anything else to say, Rolla, I think that about does it for this week.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. As Rolla said up top, you can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. You can check us out on Deezer. Also, get at us on Instagram and Twitter at Clip Service Pod. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment below what you guys think would be the most favorable matchup for the Clippers going into the first round. What you're excited for, what you're nervous about, how many points you think Luka Doncic is going to drop on us or average against us in the first round. All of that, we want to hear what you guys have to say. But thank you so much for tuning in. And until next week, go Clips.
Go Clips.